Future Weapon Enthusiast. I'm Nick Young, and I'm here with Nick White, and we are doing our very first official podcast. It's our Tomorrow's Weapons podcast, and the intent of this podcast is to educate everybody on what innovation looks like, be a central discussion point for innovation within the industry, talk about obstacles to innovation, spotlight innovative products that people are working on inside deserttech or outside of deserttech, invite innovators within our industry to come and share their knowledge, their experience, and their products and the benefits of those things, as well as discuss where we think technology is going in the industry and what the future looks like. So we wanted to do a couple things today. First, talk about what this podcast is supposed to be, which we just did. And then we wanted to kind of explain what innovation looks like, and then talk about some obstacles that exist in the gun industry that really kind of hamper and hurt companies' willingness to innovate. So first, innovation is essentially understanding the essence of what target customers need and figuring out how to deliver the results as best as you possibly can. And so what it looks like when we're designing something is we identify the core pieces required to achieve the essence of what they want to the best of our abilities, and we try to exclude everything else and throw everything else out. And so really that's what innovation is how do you do better than what exists now and at the same time make it simple and get rid of stuff,
I think if I could jump in there, I think in our industry and a lot of industries, it's about finding that balance, right? And so you've got here's the feature set that we're looking for, but here's where we're coming from, and how do you deliver something that isn't such a major departure, or in some cases like that might be the only way to drive that innovation, but people may not see the benefit because it's different than what they're used to. That change is a big obstacle, right?
Right, and you bring up an important point because we can be extremely innovative and push right up to the edge, but if the consumer doesn't really understand what you did, there's resistance to be able to actually to use it. So and so what does that kind of leads to a lack of innovation in the industry. And so I was watching a new product release from Steyr. So they released their new version of their Steyr Scout. And I like the rifle. It's pretty cool. It's got an integrated bipod. I bought one many years ago. And so I was excited. What did they do to innovate this product? And so I watched this, half-hour long video. And in the end, they just incorporated a Picatinny rail for side attachments and then put one M-lock attachment point on the bottom of the gun. And I just was like, what? This is sad. This is, that's not innovation. Picatinny rail's been out forever. Quite frankly, they should have launched it with a Picatinny rail from the start. And I thought, why is the industry like this? They just do these microscopic changes and they call that innovation, unfortunately. So, and part of what we're trying to do here is to kind of highlight that issue and help the entire industry look further out than just adding a Picatinny rail to something.
And if I could add too, then in defense of Steyr, and I'm obviously not a product expert for them, but it's also a perception thing. So there's a very good possibility that there's more to that firearm than what you've seen or what is shown, and so maybe they haven't done a good job of conveying that. And so really what I think the goal of this is not only to share what we think is innovation, but giving deserttech or other products the opportunity to really share the finer details of what that innovation looks like, why they did it, and what are the benefits.
Being a platform of innovation for others to, anyhow, an essential hub. So if you want to know what's innovative, you can come here, and those that seek to advertise innovation and be a part of innovation, they'll want to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
All right, so we talked about what is innovation. It's the essence of what somebody needs and meeting that better than anybody else. And so one of our primary goals at deserttech is to create products that make the most elite users better. And so our target customer demographic is those people that have tested and used everything out there, and they're maximizing the limitations of what they can do with those products. And so we try to create new products that allow them to push the bar even higher. And so the areas that we focus on is lethality. How do we make it more lethal? How do we make it more mobile and more reliability, more durability, as well as better compatibility with enablers, with night vision and illuminators and thermals and such.
What would you say, Nick, if you were going to kind of pinpoint what obstacles the industry faces, or more specifically deserttech faces, when it comes to trying to innovate lethality?
Quite frankly, one of the easiest ways to innovate lethality is to do a bullpup design, because you're increasing your velocity, but there's quite a lot of dogmas against bullpups because they people think that the Steyr-AUG, it represents all bullpups ever made. The Steyr-AUG had a trigger that wasn't great, had really slow controls for changing mags, and doesn't have any compatibility, very much compatibility with existing enablers. We've pushed past all of those things, but getting people to let go of some of their previous beliefs is pretty tough in our industry. And it's interesting because you look outside into other industries and people are pretty excited about innovation. It's like you got your iPhone, and every 2 years you're getting the next iPhone update, and maybe it has a better camera or whatever, and everybody seems to be super excited for that next release. But within our industry, you almost get in trouble for releasing the next product, really.
There's always pushback. There's always the naysayer. That's not going to work. Who's not going to adopt that?
Right. Or you might have somebody that bought, we launched the MDR 6 years ago. Has it been 6 years now?
I think more, actually.
And so now we have our Wolverine, and we had a lot of pushback from fixing some of the limitations of the MDR and launching this better product, which was quite interesting to me. That they were so many people were like, well, you shouldn't make this new product better. So
I think another challenge, so you addressed the lethality from a bullpup perspective, but there's also the alternative to that is, well, can we increase muzzle velocity or change the projectile or the round so that there's more energy downrange, right? And then you run into a completely different subset of problems with that. So I think a good example would be like the 6-ARC. It's certainly going to have a higher muzzle velocity than others, but the challenge that you're facing, because you're trying to fit that into a conventional platform, is does it load reliably? How do you feed the rifle? So there's other issues trying to stay inside the same box that we've been kind of pigeonholed into for 50 plus years. So the bullpup is the other alternative, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and that gives you your extra velocity, but you bring up a really good point, because it's very difficult to release new ammunition offerings in this industry, because generally your ammo companies are separate from the rifle companies, but in order for an ammunition to have success, then the rifle companies have to adopt it and produce it. And the 6-ARC is a great example, because quite frankly, the cartridge itself is designed very efficiently. However, the geometry of the cartridge is not optimized for the existing platforms. So you get limitations of reliability. The magazines don't work with the 6-ARC, and you have to really create some pretty significant enhancements in AR-15 platforms and such to be able to make a place for this round. And so you got the consumer's reluctance to test this new cartridge. You got the rifle manufacturer's reluctance to invest in this new cartridge that may be dead in 2 years.
Right.
You spend $1 million doing all these new enhancements on the gun, and then the cartridge flops. So,
and I think that's a good point to bring up. And I know we have a lot of topics to cover, but as far as so 6-ARC's the new ammunition. There's not currently there's some issues with reliability and carrying that ammunition in a magazine. And so, is a company like Magpul or Lancer going to invest in building a product to meet that? If this is just the lady in the red dress, so to speak,
right,
of the firearms industry, and it's going to be dead in the next year or two. Arguably, it's not, but
right,
but you never know, and so it's hard for companies to justify that massive amount of R&D
right,
for something that may be short-lived.
right. And when you look at the 6-ARC, there's another option, the 6 Max, that is about 95% the same performance as the 6-ARC. But the 6 Max is highly reliable in existing magazines and existing rifle platforms. However, the military is not backing the 6 Max, which unfortunately means that it probably won't die off. It probably won't go anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It'll probably be adopted by those early innovators that love love the capability, but never catches on. And the 6-ARC, I believe, has a future because of that military backing. And everybody thinks that what the military adopts is the best, which unfortunately is not always the case.
Yeah, sometimes, but not always, for sure. What about, as we kind of outlined lethality, mobility, reliability, what are some of the challenges or opportunities to innovate with mobility?
I think that, there's material technologies. You can move into like a magnesium for reduced weight. You can move into, obvious, bullpups are very mobile. Like, I love the balance of the what a bullpup offers and shifting the weight to the rear. You got, you can line up barrels with new, carbon fiber technologies, which those there's a host of obstacles even in those arenas. But I think, the easiest way to enhance mobility is to get rid of crap on the gun that doesn't need to be there. Change the center of balance on the gun, which, bullpup is really the optimum way to do that. And then look at new technologies. Magnesium is really cool, and so is aluminum is actually really lightweight too.
Yep.
So.
And then, so as far as materials for the firearm itself, but then there's also, you had the polymer case ammunition
Right.
to try and lighten up ammo. You brought up a good point about consolidating things, right? Like taking your enablers, your optic, your rangefinder, and consolidating those down into a single piece instead of having multiple things to carry and things like that. So great opportunities there. How about like reliability and durability? Where do you see opportunities for innovation there? Or where have we seen it in the industry so far?
I think as far as, probably at the forefront of reliability is the disparity between a direct impingement system and a piston system. You got people on both sides of the fence. Some people claiming a piston system is more reliable. Some people like the direct impingement. But what it really comes down to is, can you create geometry in your magazine, in your feed ramp, in the gun, and smooth up your action, and minimize the amount of I guess, sharp corners and issues as a gun's feeding, to make sure that it's just as smooth as it can be. And then as far as keeping debris and stuff out, trying to have a good system that minimizes the amount of opportunity for stuff to get in the action. You look at the old AK, and quite frankly, the whole action's open to ingress of dirt and debris, and it's, people regard it as the most reliable autoloading rifle, and it's not. And it's just in people's heads,
Gotcha. I know that some of the other topics we want to talk about, like what are some of the things that in the firearms industry that lead to the resistance in innovation?
The biggest one is the belief that what the government uses is the best. And it's interesting because if you're looking at any other industry, you would never think that the government was using the best. It's like if you're like, okay, I want to have the most high performance automobile, the government's not buying that car. If you want to have, the best, software program for, running a business, the government's not going to have that. But for some reason in the firearms world, the belief is that whatever the government uses as a firearm is the best. And the reason for that is because the super soldiers in the military use this product to do some amazing things, and they are the best sponsor. They are the Michael Jordan within our industries. And so when you give that Michael Jordan a product that was the cheapest bid to meet the minimum requirements, and because they're using that, everybody believes that it's the best. And so as a result, then that's what people want. And as you journey in front of that, then people are reluctant to do something more. And it's interesting because Jim Sullivan, he was one of the designers instrumental in modifying the AR-15 M16 to be adopted many years ago. And I visited with him a few years back, and he has actually continued to innovate the M16 platform well beyond what it is right now. But nobody cares. Like, he's figured out how to reduce the recoil by more than half in the full auto fire of the M16, but nobody cares. And so once it becomes adopted, it's like a snapshot in time, and everybody believes that it's the best, and it's not.
Do you think, I think there is something to be said, about the military outlines a set of, standards, for lack of a better term, like how the firearm or the product should perform, how many rounds it has to fire before there's a stoppage, or what the reliability is, right? That's clearly defined. Do you think there's a level from the consumer perception that views that as a safe investment, right? Like, something might be super innovative and have performance that is 10x whatever the military is using, but if the purpose of that is, I want to make sure it's reliable, and the military has already put this through a rigorous testing protocol, do you think there's some value to that?
Yeah, I think for sure, because when we start first with the design requirements that the military sets out, I think as civilians, we believe that the design requirements they came up with are, awesome, amazing, right? But one of the things that happens behind the scenes is generally when they do an aggressive adoption of a new product or a new firearm, then it becomes a committee project. And when you have a lot of different people in this committee, then generally the requirements for this thing gets really inflated. And rather than just taking, your super high speed operators and saying, hey, what would be the best thing, you get, generals in there and other people in there that may not be elite end users throwing in their 2 cents, and you get these requirements that become really crazy. And so one example of this is HK SOCOM pistol. I remember being a young guy watching that program and thinking, this is the coolest thing ever, right? And so they adopt this pistol that's bigger than, it's pretty much the size of a Desert Eagle, but it's super accurate, super reliable, but it's super heavy and immobile. And but it had tons of press and everybody wanted it. But as soon as they adopted it, they ended up replacing it for the most part with the HK-45 Tactical because it was smaller anyways. And so, but that's a pretty good example of kind of what happens. And and I've been in some of these program meetings, and I watched some of this stuff happen, and everybody in there is like, they're really good guys. Yeah. But you just get too many ideas and try to do too much, then the product really doesn't accomplish the essence of what it's supposed to.
Like from the military's perspective, I know, and you've participated in, as Desert Tech, a lot more, you've been involved in a lot more than I have, so you probably have a lot more experience to stay on this topic specifically, but what obstacles does the military face when they're looking to innovate? Like, what are some of those things that stop them from asking for more innovation from the manufacturers that they're working with?
So one of the things is budget limitations. You know, they're making the decision: do we invest money in this new stealth fighter technology, or the surveillance technology, or these firearms? And in general, what I've seen is if their existing firearms are doing a reasonably good job, they aren't really interested in spending the money there. And so, but that's a part of why when they adopt something that stays in service for 30 plus years, 40 plus years, is because it does an adequate job and they got the budget limitations. And so,
and probably there's a level, from my experience in this, which again is a lot smaller than yours, but once you have a weapon that is compatible with all of the other pieces of their system, it's a lot more difficult to change an aspect of that makes it incompatible with those things. I think, a good example of that would be like our quad mag, right? For the military to adopt something like that, then it would require them to completely do away with or outfit their entire force, their unit, with our magazines instead of what they have existing. So that becomes a big obstacle when we talk about budgetary constraints as well.
And the adoption process has so much red tape and so much bureaucracy that it's really tough for them to make changes. The part of the military that's really nimble is your tier 1 guys. You know, the tip of the spear guys in special forces. They generally can adopt these new innovative technologies with no resistance or little resistance. However, most of the time, the world doesn't really know what's going on. And so I've had many times at trade shows where maybe a SEAL team operator or a Delta operator will come and they'll talk to me and be like, hey man, we've been running your SRS and this seems freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know they had it. You know, these guys have credit cards, they buy stuff over the counter, and and they got their new technology guys coming in too, and they're like, you know what, we've been running your MDR and we think this thing's freaking like super cool. And but we don't know those things, and the public doesn't know that those things actually happen. So, and
kind of like for anybody who doesn't know, what is the process for procurement to these types of, to the military? Because there's obviously more than one company that's involved. There's RFQs. Like, kind of walk through what that looks like and how that can get muddy.
Yeah, so it can happen a lot of different ways. If you like this NGSW program, there were several small programs happening behind the scenes that people weren't aware of, and generally if you participate and chase after these programs, generally you'll know where these solicitations get posted, and they'll say, hey, we want a product that does these things, and so you put in a white paper to be a part of this program, and then if you're down selected to be a part of the program, then you build the gun, you submit the gun, and they review the gun, and then if it gets to like a big Army contract like this, the NGSW, then it becomes extremely visible, and people from all around the world start to compete for this thing, but generally there's things that happen behind the scenes, and we're a relatively small company, and so we're disadvantaged that way. It's interesting because like you got this new ELR rifle from Barrett that's coming out. That's the 375 enabler, and it's pretty obvious that somebody was working with them behind the scenes before anything became public on that program. Anyways, and so it's
so we do a lot of working with militaries, domestic and foreign, for products, and a lot of times these RFQs will come across our desk. Our VP of International Government Sales then will open this document up, and it'll basically describe a feature set that's like, man, this sounds exactly like this firearm, almost as if somebody's in their ear saying, hey, this is what we have, and they write it that way, so it's like, hey, anybody can bid on this thing. But the reality of the situation is they've already made their selection. Right.
And they don't give you enough time before your submission deadline to actually develop something to meet those requirements. But that happens a lot.
And it doesn't give you the opportunity to really showcase many companies, not just deserttech, but it doesn't give a lot of companies the opportunity to showcase why their innovation might be better.
Right.
Or like a good example, I think, again, not to just focus wholeheartedly on bullpups, but a lot of RFQs that we look at require a collapsible or foldable buttstock. The purpose of that is to make it more mobile, but a bullpup is inherently more mobile. It's already collapsed.
Already shorter than
Yes.
the collapse requirement.
And so on a technicality,
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't meet the requirements, right? But if you look at the value that it adds,
Right.
it's there. It's kind of bizarre.
And that goes back to understanding the essence of what they need, and surpassing those expectations. So.
I guess another thing, we talked about, like what's the frequency of these kinds of opportunities, and how often is the government looking for new innovation?
Pretty few and far between. And so, you look at like the new SIG P320 that got adopted. They're not going to look at getting another handgun for probably 30 years. And all the guns that didn't win that contract, you could argue that a lot of those were better than the SIG P320, but the SIG P320 was the cheapest option that met the minimum requirements. And so, but again, the opportunity to get another handgun contract, 30 years, like literally, does it? And so our industry is going to really think that the SIG P3, that their pistol is the best out there for 30 years. Ironically, probably, but I think, quite frankly, the best pistol that's out there is that new Lago Arms Alien. I think that is the pinnacle of innovation in handgun technologies, and but
probably never adopted because it's more expensive, and rightfully so. Like there's a lot of innovation, and that's not cheap.
Exactly.
Which brings up another point. So innovation is expensive, right? Like when there's an opportunity like the NGSW program, there's obviously there's funds for development of these products that the government provides to the manufacturers that are participating. So sometimes, yeah. So not always.
Very, very rarely, actually, unfortunately.
But in some cases, and if not, so that those companies have to do all of that R&D and research on their own. But if there is those funds, and again, you're pigeonholed into the feature set that those contracts are asking for.
Right.
But when you talk about like who our core customer is, and it's not just deserttech, but any company that's chasing their customer and trying to really pinpoint a product and make it innovative for that person, those innovations may not align with what the military is looking for.
Exactly.
And so there's a very high cost to innovate at a very high risk that it won't ever get adopted, or there will be too many people that are against that innovation, right?
No, you're exactly right. And so what the military expects is it kind of limits what innovation people are willing to accept and what innovation manufacturers are willing to invest in. And what I want to do is innovate for just the love of innovation. You know what I mean? I want to innovate way beyond what the military's vision even looks like. And I part of the reason why we want to start this podcast is so that all of those that love innovation like we do, we can push the envelope faster, farther, and way beyond what the military limitations are, and at the same time educate the populace as what this is what is innovative, and stop being stuck in the limitations of what is in use today with the armed forces.
Yeah. I think that's cool. It's an opportunity to showcase what is neat out there, regardless of whether or not the military says it is. Or,
or Michael Jordan's running it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So.
Talk about, I guess some of the low tolerance that the industry has for evolutionary development. What do you think the core reason for that is? Like we see a lot. Launch a Wolverine, launch a new product, and it's almost the negative is people find that to be best suited to address whatever the new product is than trying to agree with it or be agreeable to it, right? Is that the reason why that there's a low tolerance for it, or is there some other reason, do you think?
There's a couple reasons. Number one is all new products by nature are unproven. And so when we launch a new rifle, they're like, well, it's not military adopted. Well, of course it's not. It's new. And because it's unproven, then there's a very reluctance to adopt and use this product and give it a chance. And on top of that, our industry is they have a big reluctance to evolutionary design and development. It's like people are happy every 2 years if you get a new iPhone or a new MacBook Pro or a new car. You know that I got the last model Tundra, Toyota Tundra, and we got the newest, latest, greatest model Toyota Tundra out now. And people are excited for that evolutionary development of these products. But in the gun world, if somebody wants to buy a gun like the military and sit on it for 30 years and not have to ever buy anything again, and then in the moment you make something new, they believe that that they have been betrayed. I invested in this product, and what they don't realize is that they got the latest and greatest, and they got use out of that latest and greatest, and then if a new product comes out, sell it. Like when a new car comes out, you want the new car, you sell the old car. Mm-hmm. You're not mad because there's a new version of the car.
Right.
Anyways, and so I think that evolutionary development in our industry is non-existent. Anyways.
Yeah. Probably because people are so resistant to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Then there's always the thought that if something's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah. And I think that applies a lot to the firearms industry. Maybe it goes back to like people have a desire for reliability if they know it works. Like if you're changing something, you might be changing its reliability. And when it comes to a life or death situation, it's a little bit more critical than, a car, I guess, where if something goes wrong, you can get it fixed, and it's not going to necessarily be that much of an emergency anyways. So go ahead.
And you get most of your users of firearms are just recreational users. Mm-hmm. Some of them are collectors. They just want something to show off. Some of them are going to the range once a month, once every 6 months, and they don't know what the pinnacle of performance looks like. And so when you say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, for their use, a basic anything meets what they need. But for the tier 1 guys, the guys that we're chasing after, they want to enhance their performance beyond the best of the best of the best. Those guys can tell a difference. Those guys know what shootability is. They know what mobility is. They know the advantage of having something that they can maneuver in a vehicle is. And most of the people are not like that.
Yeah, because they're never in that type of a situation where they need to know.
Right.
Another thing I think we didn't really talk about, but there's maybe we touched on it a little bit, but there's always what is perceived value versus what is actual value in some of those changes. You brought up the Steyr, the new rifle, right? There's another thing is we've looked at, deserttech's getting into the AR-15 market, and we've looked at how do we, come to market with new products and expand that family long term. And we talk about, we've had conversations with our dealers, with end users, what types of things to make an AR-15 rifle the highest value, and a lot of those things are perceived. I think a good example is like barrel technology, right? We got a lot of feedback from dealers, stainless steel barrels, that's what you want. And you would chime back with,
chrome-plated barrels is a big one.
Yeah, because it's going to last longer. But then we actually dig into the data, and it's like, a chromoly barrel is going to maybe not last as long as a stainless barrel, but it's going to be more accurate. And that's kind of what deserttech is known for. But the perception in the market is that stainless steel is better. Right. And that's, unfortunately, you're almost kind of like, you have to do it that way. Right. Otherwise, people are going to perceive it as less valuable.
Right. Well, as you look at the stainless steel barrel, it's corrosion resistant, and so in those respects, it's better value for if you don't want to have any corrosion issues. Chromoly is stronger. The chromoly will actually last longer, but you do have the issue of corrosion, but you can solve that with melaniting and platings anyways inside the bore.
So really it comes down to like making sure that the consumer is educated on what the application is, right? Because if you're going to be in an area that's prone to more corrosion, maybe stainless steel, but if you're looking for something that's more accurate, then the chrome, right? So like, but again, it's just that perceived thing. If this is what the whole industry is preaching as best, regardless of application, then you're missing the mark. Or right, a lot of these companies are potentially.
Well, you get a lot of perceptions in the build quality too. I mean, like you were saying with the barrels, bolt head materials. People think that carpenter steel is the best because somebody put out a marketing message out there, and we use 4140, which is way stronger than carpenter steel, like way stronger. And but if you was to tell people that, they don't really know. It wasn't on the brochure before. And then the same goes for just products themselves, because something's military adopted, people think that it's the best. Going back to the SIG, pistol that just got adopted, there's a ton of controversy with the pistol. I haven't had any problems with it, but a lot of people reporting unsafe discharges with the gun. But everybody's discounting it because it was military adopted. That there's no way that's happening. It's like, you know what? If that happened to us, we would be dead as a company. If we had, 20, 30 people reporting unsafe discharges with our guns, we'd be eaten alive. But because that pistol is adopted, people don't care.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely interesting. It's an interesting topic to discuss, and I think the goal of this, our first podcast was really just kind of outline what we want to talk about. And there's a lot of stuff to unpack as we dive into each of these, like each of the nuances within the firearms industry as a whole. And it's going to be fun getting people on here who have experience in different aspects of firearms. So it'll be neat. And of course, as we do this more frequently, I think getting feedback from our viewers or our subscribers on, what it is you would like to learn about. I know for a fact this guy right here loves data, loves pouring into it. And so we want to inform people what is innovative, what makes the most sense for which applications. And I think that all in all, we're going to have some fun on this podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, it's fun. I'm an innovation junkie. And it's like I said, we want to innovate and push way beyond what anybody else is doing, what any service has the visibility of doing. And I think that you guys are going to enjoy this ride with us. We're going to be talking about, lightweight ammunition in the future. We're going to be talking about, what we think are the best gun designs out there, enablers. Anyways, it'll be a good ride. So if there's anything that you guys specifically want us to look at or have discussions about, let us know in the comments. So
I'd say additionally, if there's any company, individual, that you guys would love to hear from, let us know. We have a lot of contacts in our network. We want to get a lot of people on to discuss different topics, but we do want to engage with our customers as well. So if you guys want to hear from somebody in particular, we would love to know who that is and see if we can get them on in the future.
Very good. I think that completes our first official podcast. Thanks for watching.